Final Flash. Welcome back, Audiophiles. It's me, your boy Joe, back again with another video, and this time we'll be looking at two different IEMs from the same brand today. This time we're going to be looking at the Final Audio E3000, which is a mouthful to say, and as well as the Final Audio VR2000. Now, these two are from the Final Audio brand. They're known for making a lot of those micro driver based IEMs, such as these ones in here, and we're going to be taking a closer look at it. Without any further ado, let's begin. So, full disclosure regarding the Final E and the Final VR, the Final E IEM, the Final E2000, is something that I bought for myself from the used market and hence is something that I own. As for the VR2K, this has been generously loaned to me by a good friend from the Discord group, which I'm also a member of. My friend's name in that Discord group is Gintoki, and the Discord group that I'm a member of is the Indian audio community. I will leave a link for an invite in the description down below, so you could also join in if you'd like, which I do highly recommend you guys joining in, so you could directly talk with me and discuss anything you want about audio in there. So we are a big thriving community with more than 1,300 members so far, so looking forward to growing the community and love to see you all in there. So an honorable mention to Ramanuj alias Monk Nuggets, as he's the owner of the Discord server and he facilitated this review as well as the Truth Here Zero Blue 2. Once again, huge shout out to Gintoki for sponsoring this unit, and as always, all thoughts and opinions are my own. With all that said, let's begin. So, funny story with these IEMs is that the unboxing. I don't have that much of an unboxing to show to you guys, but as for the E3000, I got it in this flimsy box over here. There's not much of an unboxing when it comes to budget-oriented IEMs. As far as unboxing goes for both the VR2K, I'm gonna go saying it VR2K instead of VR2000, that's gonna be a mouthful to roll off of. But for the VR2K and the E3K, they just directly come with a box, and inside the box is the IEM just coiled up inside. Wow.
You don't say!
So along with the IEM in the box, there's just the ear tips, which is the Final E ear tips. That's kind of another tongue twister. This is going to be a really hard one to get through. As for the Final E, these are nice, good, narrow bore ear tips, which are nice and comfortable. And I do highly recommend these kind of ear tips for those who wants to get a good bass performance out of whatever IEMs they're using. As for the Final E's and for the Final VR, they are both well suited for such ear tips because that's how it's paired with. Other than that, you really don't get much of an unboxing experience. It's just the IEM, the ear tips just popped in there and the cable coiled up. So unboxing experience wise, nah, you're not gonna get good unboxing experiences for both the VR 2K as well as the E3K. Let's move on to the design, starting with the Final E3000. The Final E3000 is a metal shell. As far as specs goes, the Final E3000 consists of a single dynamic driver, which is 6.4 mm in size, with an impedance rating of 16 ohms and a sensitivity of 100 dB. Now that translates to pretty good output that can be straight out from a phone, from an iPad, or from pretty much anything that you want. You don't really need a DAC to drive this home, but as usual, when it comes to these kind of earphones, when you do use a DAC with some good power, you get better output from it. But in these kind of IEMs, you could get good output straight out from your phone, provided your phone has a 3.5 mm jack. And now with capitalism, we are getting none of those 3.5 mm jacks directly in phones anymore. Sucks. So design-wise, you could see that we have cylindrical shells. I will show you a picture in here on the side. And the nozzle is a short nozzle in which you would put your ear tips on. And regarding the ear tips, I would get back to you on that in the sound impressions. But so far, these noble ear tips is a gold mine of an ear tip that pairs really well with the Final E3000. And from that, we are getting the cable. Now this is where all comes down. The cable is a super thin cable that is the flimsiest that I have ever seen. And from the cable, we have a chin slider which stays in place and functional, which is nice. And we have a generic Y split. Now at this point, if you are having the mic version of it, you would have the mic instead of the chin slider, but in the E3000 I don't have that. I do have that in the VR, which I'll get to in a second. And from the Y-split, we are having once again, a thin cable which has some memory to it. It's not the worst, but it is the thinnest of cables, which I really don't like. And it ends in a 3.5 mm jack. Now you might have noticed that this cable is not modular. So this cable is stuck well and firm with the IEMs, and heaven forbid you get a slight damage in the cable, then your IEMs are cooked. Another point note with the E3000 is that the backside of the shell has a perforated part, which makes this as a supposed open back style design. We'll see how this translates to in the sound impressions. Okay, so moving on to the VR2K, you could see that the VR2K has a very nice, good design. It's pretty ergonomic. It has that beautiful looking shell that is having a gamer aesthetic to it. And from that shell, we are having a ear hook attachment that is also available in the E3000 for your understanding. I would also show a picture of how that looks in here. And this ear hook is something that you can latch on and take it off as well if you so choose. And once again, we have the same kind of thin cable from the E3000 series as well. This one has a mic attachment where you can control the volume up and down, and you have a multi-purpose button which you can use to play pause. And from there we have a functioning chin slider once again, which is nice to see. And from that we have a Y-split, a generic Y-split, no branding in there. And then finally the cable finishing off to a 3.5 mm connection. So if I were to compare them side by side, the VR2K is of course gaming oriented. So its particular design, cues and everything is towards the gaming aspect, while the Final E3000 is towards the musical aspect. So it is having a good cylindrical design. And a good point to note with the Final E series is that it's a bullet style IEM, which you can use to directly put downwards, or you could also hook in with the hook that I was explaining earlier and listen in that aspect. So that is something which is pretty good in here. So if you want to just put them in directly without having to hook around your ear, if you're into that sort, perfectly doable in the E3000. In terms of pricing, both of them are actually pretty similar, with both of them being released at around the $70 mark. But right now, the Final E3000 can be bought for as little as $35, and the Final VR2000, you could get this at pretty much at around $40. Okay, so let's go for a fit test, starting with the E3000. It has the notations for left and right, so you can note that down when you're putting it in. There's no dot or something that you can feel by haptic, which I kind of don't like. Usually, most earphones would have a dot near the cable, or the IEM itself will have something of a bump that you could feel and then put in your ear, so you could quickly note it down in the nighttime. Otherwise, in here, I have to blare out my torchlight and then see if this one is right or left. So that's something of a nuisance that I see with the E3000. So here's the fit test. This is the right ear, and this is the left ear. As I said, you could wear this in two mechanisms. So this one is directly downwards, but you can also just take the earphones, roll it around your ears, and then put it in. Now you have the ear hooked version. Now in this version, here's the right side, and here's the left side. So one good thing about having it in this ear hook version is that you don't get any microphonics from the cable. So while walking, if this cable is brushing on your shirt, you don't hear that audio coming in, and it doesn't irritate in the ear hook version. Whereas if you put this directly to your ears instead, and then you move around, you could feel the tugging and the microphonics that comes from the cable. So that's also a point to note when you're using this in either the hooked version or the direct version. Moving over to the VR2K, this is something of a really comfortable fit. Let me show you in here. So this is the fit test with the VR2K, up and over, in and done. As far as the material goes, I really kind of like the material that they used for both the VR2K as well as the E3000, because the wire doesn't itch my ear, if you know what I mean. It doesn't get the kind of allergic reaction or anything, and it is feeling really soft. So the ear hooks themselves, pretty soft as well. So I could go on wearing these for hours, both the VR2K as well as the E3K. And you can see it pretty much fits nice and snug. Here's the right side. And here's the left side. So perfectly snug, ergonomic fit. I could wear this for hours for both the VR2K as well as the E3K. The ear hook is also really comfortable. There's no scratching or anything whatsoever. They're made out of rubber, so that's also a comfortable fit. Comfort-wise, I really love both of them. So comparing them side by side, both of them have dynamic drivers. The Final E3000 is having a 6.4mm dynamic driver, while the V2000 is having a 6mm dynamic driver. The materials of both these drivers is kind of different, and there's a lot of marketing jargon that goes on with it, so I don't want to bring that up. The impedance rating of the Final E3000 is 16 ohms, while the impedance rating of the Final VR2000 is 18 ohms. So this has a higher impedance than the E series. As far as the sensitivity goes, this one is 102 dB for the VR2000, and the E3000 is 100 dB. So spec-wise, you could see that they do have similar numbers, but we will see the differences when it comes to the sound impression. Let's move on. So while getting into the sound impressions, let's pull out the frequency response graph of both of them side by side so we could compare them. Beginning with the Final E3000 and the VR2000, I'll show you a picture in here. We can see that the sound signature of both of these is really different. The Final E3000 is actually more of a mellow V-shaped signature, while the Final VR2000 is actually an L-shaped somewhat, where the bass is actually a little lower and then it gets on more on the higher end. Now the reason for that, as you can see, it's a gaming oriented IEM, so you want to have a control bass which is not going to overpower anything else, and you specifically want to hear elements in a game. So let's say that you're going to be playing Call of Duty and you want to hear the enemy footsteps. The enemy footsteps will be clearly heard when you're using a VR2K in this range. Whereas when we're going for the Final E series, the Final E series is going for a V-shaped curve, and it is more of a mellow V-shaped curve where you could see that we do have a very good sense of bass, but the treble doesn't go so high. So it's a more of a subtle V-shaped curve, if you know what I mean. So in terms of drivability, I see that both of these things can be driven pretty much with anything. I've used on a phone, I've used it with DACs, I've used it with portable BT DACs like the Retro Nano, and it drives well in any of them. So as far as drivability goes, for both the VR2000 and for the E3000, you're not going to have any issues. For my sound test, I'm going to be running this off the FIO K11, and in terms of ear tips, I'm going to be using the Tangsu Shanghai narrowbore for the VR2K because that is synergizing really well with it. It kind of enhances the bass performance. And the Tangsu Noble ear tips for the ER3K because the Noble ear tips enhances the treble a little bit, which I think synergizes really well for the ER3K. With all that said, let's put some music to these bad boys and get back to you.
A few moments later.
So starting off with the first song, we have Aatma Raama by Brother V, and this is a very nice track because it has a good mellow background bass line with a tambourine as well as a V-Nay that plays in the back end. When it comes to the VR2000, I noticed that the bass, even though it says on paper that the bass is kind of not there, I do hear a really good sense of bass. It has a nice controlled bass in the VR2000, which then, of course, the treble and the high end takes over. For the song itself, I see that the bass line is, as expected, subdued but present, not missing out. The tambourines is actually picking up higher than usual. The vocals is present forward. It's a male vocal, so he is present forward and pretty nice and clear. In terms of detail, I do think it has all of the details in it. The bass, as I said, a bit subdued but well controlled. The soundstage of the VR2K is actually pretty good. Yeah, I do have a sense of width when I'm listening to it. This, I believe, is translating to the gamer aspects where you want to hear where the footsteps coming from and you want to discern the location of the footsteps. I do see that translating well when I'm listening to the songs in here. when listening to the same song with the Final E3000, I noticed that it's a very big shift. The song goes more towards the bass side now. I hear the bass line really clear, and it's kind of booming. I would not say totally to the mids, but the bass is a little bit blunt. If I would say it's not the sharpest of bass lines, I would call this a mellow bass boost. And that bass boost comes across pretty clear with the details kind of there. It's certainly not as much as the VR2000s, but it is there. But ever so soft. It's kind of softened it up a lot. I do think that the ER3000 is somewhat of a mellow V shape, and it softens the bass, it softens the treble. It goes on for the kind of cases where you want to listen to extended sessions without hurting so much in the bass and so much in the treble, I presume. Over and all, as far as the song goes, I did actually enjoy the song more with the ER3000 as compared to the VR2000 because, of course, I'm a bass head. I do have my bias on it, but in terms of details, I did feel that the tambourines were a little bit too sharp in the VR2000s as compared to the E3000 where it's totally softened out. So the next time we're going to see is Addicted featuring Zerb and Ink by Chainsmokers and Guru Randhawa and Jonita Gandhi. There's a lot of artists in this one. This one is so that I could experience the EDM aspect. I wanted to try to see how the VR2K as well as the E3K behaves when we hear EDM based songs which has a lot of bassline to it. As expected, the VR2K is really good out there, kept the bassline to a controlled level and then give more importance to the details. In this case, the female vocals is in front while the male vocals is also forward, but then not as much as the female vocals. When it came to the hi-hats or the higher frequency instruments, they are coming across a little sharp, but I would not say it's totally sharp. In this, I say that the Final E3000 did really well. The bass line is really good. It doesn't have the sub-bass rumble to it. It does have that bass authority. It doesn't have the bass slam or the impact you would imagine, but it has a kind of smooth authority over the rest of the songs. So you do nod your head a little bit towards the music because the bass is enveloping you, but not so much as it's punching you in the face sort of way. As far as the vocals goes, the vocal is pretty clear. I would not say that it is getting drowned into the bass, but very smooth, very mellow, and the female vocals as well as the male vocals, I feel that in this case they're both in a similar situation. The hi-hats, which were perceived to be pretty sharp in the VR2K, is once again really smoothened out, and it's very enjoyable to hear. It's pleasurable to hear, and something that I did note is that I tend to increase the volume a bit more for the Final E3000 as compared to the Final VR2K, where since the higher frequencies is kind of overpowered, I would say, I am reducing the volume. On the whole, the song is really good. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more in the Final E3000 as compared to the Final VR2000. So the next one that we're going to see is Adventure of a Lifetime by Coldplay. Now this one is a really beautiful song where there's a lot of different instruments which I enjoy. In this one there is a tin-like instrument. I don't know why. I think it's kind of like a tin drum where there's like tick 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 that goes around. This is my very good impression of the tin drum. I actually kind of like the way that it's being rendered in the VR2000. In this one, I feel once again with the bass is controlled and level, but the rest of the instruments gets forward and gets more importance in this one. The male vocals, of course, Coldplay's vocals is front and center and it's really clear, but the micro details of the song is picked up really well in the VR2000. When it comes to the E3000, when I'm listening to the same song, the bass is very good. The bass line has a little bit of a boom to it. I don't think that's much of an issue, but it is a point to note that when I'm listening with the E3000, it's increased, but it's kind of smoothened so much that it starts to feel a little bit boomy. However, I didn't get that kind of problem with the VR3000, and the details are nice and crisp. The tin drums, like I mentioned, is really clean in the VR2000 as compared to the E3000, so it is kind of trading blows in that sort. But on the whole, the enjoyment aspect is similar in both cases, but I would give this to the VR2000 because of all the extra details that I'm able to hear in this particular song. Over and all, a really good song that I enjoyed a lot. The VR2000 gets it for the win for this particular song. Alright, so my overall, how does it go for the VR2000 and the Final E3000? Well, in terms of comfort, I really love the comfort factor of this. It blends with your ear for both cases. I like the bullet style straight down version as well as the hooked version of the E3000. The VR2000's hook is really comfortable, soft, and cozy. The fit was perfect for me, the ergonomics. If there was the hook in the E3000, which is present, but I don't have it, I would believe that it's going to be the same feel, so I really love the comfort aspect of it. In terms of tip synergy, the ear tips, since the nozzles are smaller, you kind of have a smaller selection of ear tips to choose from. As for me, I really liked the Tangsu Shanghai, how it works for both these cases, so I don't have any problems in that front. In terms of musicality, the E3000 is more suited for that kind of mellow V-shaped signature that you would expect to enjoy for EDMs, songs which is having more bass line to it. And the VR2000 is something that you can enjoy for songs where you prefer that kind of neutral towards a bright leaning aspect, where you prefer to listen to more of the details of the song as compared to the bass or the banging your head against the bassline music of the song, if you know what I mean. However, when it comes all down to it, the VR2000 is a gaming-oriented IEM anyhow, where you would prefer to use this for gaming, and I do see the point that this would be really good in gaming because you get to hear all the details, the footsteps, the shouts, probably some of the cues that's in some of the games like COD or League of Legends. And when it comes to the E3000, you wouldn't hear those kind of details very clearly. I would not say that it's bloated out or anything. I was using the E3000 in some games and I don't notice so much of a loss in it, but compared to the VR2000, of course, it's a little less. With all that in mind, what am I going to give the rating? Well, I'd give the rating as a whole, and one very big downside to me on both these cases is, given the fact that these are $70 but then coming down, some of the IEMs in this range are still having modular cables. So if this thing gets a nick, as for the VR2000 and the VR3000, you're cooked. That itself puts it a little bit down, but when you're listening to the music aspect of it, I would give the Final E3000 a good rating of 3.5 out of 5, and I would give the VR2000 a 3 out of 5. Now, why is it lower? Like I said, I take the rating as an overall, and having a modular cable is really important for me, so that's why both of them lost a star on that front. But in terms of music, I'm a basshead, so I am biased more towards the E3000, but the VR2000 is no slouch either. It has really good sense of details. If you want to listen to a song where you want to enjoy more of the details of it, the VR2000 is much better than the E3000. So that's all for the review for both the VR2000 and the E3000. Let me know what you think of both of them in the comments below. Do you have the V2000? What do you like about it more than the other IEMs in your collection? And do let me know your thoughts and comments down in there while you're at it as well. And as usual, if you do like my video, hit the thumbs up button. If you don't like the video, hit the thumbs down button. I don't know. Until then, I will see you in the next video. Peace.